Today we're here to talk about the world of work, like what is going on in our workplace today, and how do we design for a sense of belonging, a sense of community in the work environment with all these unprecedented forces that are happening in our workplace and in our world today. So as we know, this is completely uncharted territory. In the last 5 years, we have seen more change than we have in generations. But we believe that it's also filled with opportunity. The importance of building that community in the workplace provides that infrastructure, that opportunity for people to thrive and organizations to adapt to change. The 4 macro shifts that our Steelcase research is, or that all of this kind of community work is based on, is derived from our research. So we did a global research study that told us the 4 major things organizations are grappling with, dealing with, front of mind for all of us today are, the first one is living on screen. You can't quite see that. 56% of meetings include remote participants today. Staggering numbers, higher than, almost double than what it was pre-COVID. The next one is we are in this AI super cycle, and that's what a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be focused on. It's the intersection of AI and all of these other things. So we will have a panel that will be joining us, and we're going to go a little bit deep into the integration of AI and how that intersects with these other forces. We know that employees are driving that AI super cycle too. The next macro shift is the sustainability mindset. Companies are making unprecedented commitment to reducing carbon emissions, almost double in the last 2 years. And finally, this need for well-being. There's an urgency around well-being in the workplace. We're all more cognizant of it, and the statistics are staggering. It is going down, down, down every single year. So as we dive into that first one, living on screen, we know that screen-based interactions have overtaken in-person interactions and communication. 56% of meetings, and I would actually venture to guess it's probably higher than that, include remote participants, and only 44% are fully in person. People are choosing convenience. They're opting, even when they are in the workplace and they are on campus, they're choosing convenience over getting up, walking to a room, taking the time in advance to find a room. We know that there's a lot of times a struggle with availability of rooms or rooms that are not fully equipped for the meeting that they have to have. So they're just making it easier and opting to take a lot of those meetings from their desks. So some of the things that we're starting to think about is how do we create better hybrid collaborative spaces? How do we support well-being in that same environment? How do you support privacy? And how do you create easy access to power? Because if you remove some of the barriers, then you're going to make those on-screen interactions even better. We talked about the AI supercycle. So we know, again, unprecedented advancement in AI. AI is in everything that we're doing today. Even if you're feeling like, I don't know how to upskill myself, I don't know how to learn more about it, like AI is in your car, it is in your wearable, it is in the radio stations that you're listening to, it's in your streaming devices, it's infiltrating everything, personal and work life today already. And I think the more seamless it is, the better it is working for us. But there's a huge opportunity now to think about how do we integrate that into our workflow, and then how do we integrate that into the work environment. AI skill sets are a must-have for people today. And I think even in the last 6 months, like 6 months ago, you had to be a prompting expert to know how to use any of these softwares. And natural language is being more and more embedded, and it's becoming so much easier. And again, one of the things we're going to be talking about today is how do we think about our workplace environment? We've broken it down into kind of like this easy 2x2 to think about individual and team spaces that are both owned and shared. How do we create immersive video experiences? How are we cognizant of hybrid experiences, acoustic, sound, audio, video system, chatbots, meeting assistants, generative tools, and how those are integrated into the environment today. The next is sustainability mindset. So as I said before, organizations are setting new sustainability targets. The number of companies that have made commitments to reduce their carbon emissions has doubled in the last year or two. And there's new roles, new skills needing to be developed around sustainability. Ways we can think about that in the built environment are, how do our spaces anticipate change? How do they easily adapt? How do they respond to the needs of the people that are living and working in them, instead of building things that are hyper-fixed and permanent? And then ways in which that's starting to show up in our workplace is supporting cross-functional teams, knowing that people are more geographically distributed, choosing sustainable partners, the products that we put into our environment, the products that we build our environments with, creating a shared vision across organization, and fostering that culture of learning around sustainability. And lastly is that ever-present elevation of our own individual well-being. We know that the rate of change at work is accelerating faster than people's ability to keep up. It's creating anxiety. We're hearing that most people are not thriving at work. 66% of people feel as if they are not thriving, and that's higher for the millennial and Gen Z population. We also know that anxiety is higher amongst those generations. Additionally, employee work-life balance is dropping more and more every year. And leaders' support for rejuvenation has tripled in the last 3 years, but it's still not offsetting the reality of how employees are feeling. So again, I think the intersection of AI with well-being is a huge opportunity. That's what some of our panelists are going to talk a little bit about today. And things that we can consider in the workplace is, how do we create a diverse mix of spaces that support real human needs? How do we design for effectiveness and effectiveness, the way people feel, the way they connect with one another? How do you design with, not just for, so that you bring the employees, you bring the people using the space into the design process to create an environment that works well for them and works for everybody? And then ensuring that we're providing spaces that support a wide range of focus needs, because we know that we don't all focus in the same way. So this is kind of what a quick overview, and what we're going to be talking a little bit more about with our guests today is, how do we respond to these forces? How do we respond to this change in the workplace today? Here's a recap of those 4 macro shifts: living on screen, the AI supercycle, the sustainability mindset, and the need and urgency for well-being. How do we identify new patterns of work, and how do we then plan and design for that in a way that is evolves like a great community does, that sets us up to be resilient and effective in respond to these changes as they continue to evolve over time? So with that, I would like to invite our panelists. All right, so on the end we have Christina Vernon with Steelcase, General Manager of Hybrid Solutions and Technology Partners. In the middle, we have Chris Boyle, Senior Service Desk Manager for MSU FCU. And on the end here, we have Zach Zapanik, General Manager for Audio Visual Solutions here at NBS. And I'm going to ask them all to tell us a little bit about what they do, not just what their title is. And you guys can sit down. Make yourselves comfortable.
Oh, sure.
As long as you don't feel like you're teetering too high up there.
Yeah, right. We're solid
high
up here. All right.
I'm going to kind of scooch over here.
Christina, would you like to lead off?
Sure. Well, thank you all for being here this evening. I lead our Hybrid Solutions and Tech Partners group, and what we really do is work with our technology partners to bring insights, data, customer pain points into Steelcase, and then we think about, how do we really design space to really support technology and new ways of working. So we developed products that really think about the integration of technology. We think about not only cameras and screens, but we think about microphones, acoustics, lighting, all of those things that make up a better hybrid work experience are the things that our team is focused on.
So I'm service desk manager. We look after the support for the credit union. The reason I was asked to come here today is I used to be our digital employee experience manager as well. So we remodeled our HQ2 building in East Lansing, and I was the manager that oversaw the installation of all our equipment, AV, complete redesign of a 4-story building to incorporate hybrid work environment and flexible seating.
Yeah, it was an amazing project too.
Yeah.
So I'm Zach. I have the great fortune to lead our audiovisual division here. I've spent a lifetime in technology. I started very early. I was in Steelcase, did a number of different things, but it's all about technology in the workplace. I have a bit of an obsession about this, and I'm just really happy that I have a team here who shares that passion. So I'm going to do my best to keep it toned down a little bit here, but I'm looking forward to talking with these brilliant people.
I love what you all have in common, and that is the opportunity to identify where AI has the opportunity to really enhance how people interact with one another, enhance the work experience, and evolve the places in which work happens. So I have a few questions for each one of you. I'll kind of direct a question kind of to each one of you, and then if you guys want to jump in, please feel free and feel comfortable with that too.
Sounds good.
All right, so Chris, I will start with you in the hot seat. When we were talking before, you mentioned thinking about how the work experience and AI can come together to really improve employee well-being. You talked about reducing friction, removing barriers, just kind of providing an environment that allowed people to bring and focus on where they add value versus kind of having that overload of things that are sometimes barrier to use of space or barrier to use of technology or embrace of technology. So can you talk a little bit about how you've integrated that into your facility and why it's important to you?
Yeah. So we've gone with a hybrid work model. We have a hybrid workforce, except for our branches. Obviously, you can't go to someone's house and get your money out of your account. But most of the back office areas have some sort of hybrid or completely remote capabilities. So we've gone through and we decided to shrink down the amount of office space we were using and go to the no address model, or the open address model. So we have neighborhoods, and to your point earlier about trying to personalize those spaces, we have front porches, we have areas that people can, show their flair, but the desks are clear spaces. So you come in, you dock, you leave at the end of the day, you don't leave anything behind. So that's where we've gone with that piece. When it comes to our meeting rooms, we were really thoughtful about, what are the products that are out there. We've integrated Logitech site cameras into our buildings, 21:9 displays to utilize more of those features for Microsoft Teams, and just made them easier to use with the One Touch. Our old WebEx building, or WebEx we were using in our other building, it took a couple touches. We had a lot of complaints about it's not as easy to use. I don't know what to do. With the Microsoft Teams, you walk in, you go join meeting. If you've invited that room to that space, it's super easy. And then we're also using the Crestron panels outside those rooms to say whether they're booked, when they're going to be booked, and things like that. So when you walk up that space is free or it's being occupied, who's occupying it, what they're occupying it for. And then we're using AppSpace on the back end to track, when you walk up to a desk, you book it out through AppSpace. And then we've got iPads at each of our locations at the entrances, so that you can book a desk as you walk in the building as well. So that's a new addition this last week, so really cool.
I love that. And I love some of the language you're using, similar to this idea of creating community. So you talked about neighborhoods, front porches, you talked about things that are super easy, which I love. One Touch. Can you tell us a little bit about the vision of ease of use and that intersection of employee experience? Did that start out as your goal? Were you guys early in that process, or were you kind of solving for the complication of your existing?
I think we'd learn a bit through COVID. COVID happened, we all went remote. Then we tried to come back and work in this hybrid space. We learned a lot of lessons through that. We'd converted some of our rooms over. We tried different technology. We found that the rooms weren't acoustically sound. So we had a lot of, echo and things like that. So we worked through, different projects to kind of see if we can come up with ways to solve those problems. But I think, partnering with NBS was awesome because they've got the experience in the area. Jack came up and was like, hey, try this. These are the leaders. We tried a bunch of different sound bars. We tried different cameras, but we were able to test it all. We were able to experience it all and really come up with things that worked for the spaces that we were using them in. So we have, all sorts of different technology throughout all our spaces. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So Zach, thinking about how you guys worked with Chris and team, what are some of the things that you start out with customers? I'm sure they come to you asking for technical requirements, right? But how do you shift that conversation to workplace strategy and understanding experience? And what are some of the things that are showing up for you, like as questions from your customers today?
Sure, yeah. I do think that Chris and MSU FCU are a great example of what's happening here. Like you had said, there are a number of our clients who come to us and they go, hey, I've got a workplace, I need technology, right? And we start talking about this room. Oh, I got a room. And we're like, cool, good, we like that. It's good that you have a room. Let's take it up a notch, right? Like, what is going to be the intended user experience, and how are we going to turn that into a workplace technology strategy where we say, okay, there are some needs, people have needs in these rooms, what can we do to have common solutions to address these needs and do so in a way that's going to be consistent? Because what's, I think, driving a lot of the anxiety in the workplace is people go into these rooms and they're like, oh boy, here goes. I don't know what this one is, and I hope it works. And they can kind of figure it out, but we need to be doing better than that. I think this is imperative that we have more organizations thinking about this, like MSU FCU is, where they're saying, let's try to make a big play here. Let's have a long-term view of what our employees need and what do we need to build into these spaces to make it happen. And he also hit a point here that I really want to emphasize. Chris used to have a title, I think I'm going to get this right, Digital Employee Experience Manager. This is a big deal because not only do you have to have the spaces, but in your community you need to have guides. Somebody who is responsible for saying the employees, when they come into a space, should be able to do this, and it will go like this. And usually they're also saying, less is more. How can I make this a 1, 2, 3, right? I want to make sure that people can actually use it. And so it's like building a long-term plan and vision, executing, and then being ready to reinforce that in day 2 and really help enable user success. That's what I think our clients are coming to us. Some of them are at different places than others, but that's where we want to try to get them to.
Yeah, and it's great that you guys are shifting the conversation from like, I need speakers and a microphone and a camera that follows me and does this and does that. Because I think what it sounds like where you're working and where you're having success is that intersection of the reality that we are living on screen. Employees' well-being is suffering tremendously. We know the impact of tech on individual loneliness and the downfall of our well-being, and the AI supercycle. Can you speak to some of the AI elements specifically that, and Christina as well, that we're integrating into the workplace that hopefully you don't see?
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about this before, that when you have a great experience with anything, you usually don't identify like it was the lighting or it was the comfort of the chair or it was the warm tones in the environment. You identify things that are terrible or that don't work well, like this lighting makes me feel awful or makes my skin look awful. The sound in here is too noisy, I can't hear, I can't enjoy my dining experience. It's easy to identify those things.
Yeah.
But where is AI showing up in the workplace that we may or may not even see it?
Oh yeah. No, you are right. When it's done well, it fades to the background. And you'd made a point earlier, it's like, it's here now. And there's a lot of different terminology being applied to these features. One of the things that we have a conversation on around the team is like, is it AI or is that the marketing term for it? You know, it would have been called an automation or an algorithm, but now it's AI. But the reality is, in your cameras, in your microphones, in your speakers, there's already technology to make you look good, sound good, and be able to hear the other people that you're having a conversation with. That's here and now. What I think is coming, and maybe others want to comment on this one, is that I think of it as the promise of AI is still yet to come. Because what really needs to happen is, in order for us to deliver on the big dream, is that all of this needs to come together in a way where you really feel like these technologies are working in symphony and they help enhance your team's productivity. I'm not really a sports guy, but I've heard in basketball, they refer to the crowd as like the sixth man, right? Like they're there reinforcing it, right? Like that helps everybody feel like, you know, we're able to do more. That's what I think is the promise of AI, is that it's somebody who's controlling the camera for you. Okay, track me, right? Watch me. It's somebody who's taking notes, who's keeping track of action items, who's going to say, hey, you know, John, you didn't make it to the meeting, but you just got assigned 3 different tasks, right? That's somebody, like, that'd be helpful on a team. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you. So I think, like, right, yeah, right. If you show up, you won't get, you know, voluntold. But the whole point that I'm trying to say is, like, yes, it's happening, and yes, we're integrating these things, and it's happening today, but there's still a lot more to come, and we do need to take, I think, a steady hand in trying to bring these forward in a way that people understand, are not too afraid of, right, but can really make use of, and it can really deliver on that big vision. So I don't know if I've gone any place you want to comment on.
No, I think you're right on. And what I really think with AI and that frontier that you were talking about is, you know, one of the things that our tech partners talk about is like, how do we make this more visible in space? How do we make it so it's not a concern for employees, or that an employee doesn't feel like this is just Big Brother watching me? And so those are some of the areas that we're starting to push on now, is like opening up, you know, behind the curtain and saying like, hey, guess what? It knows that we're here. It's pulling up our meeting notes from the last meeting. It's actually providing some really nice productivity for us, so we don't have to think that hard any longer. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have so many browsers open on my, you know, PC. I have 6 notes flying. I would love that if someone could just get a little bit easier. Also, if my AI assistant someday could say like, hey, Christina, you have 5 meetings tomorrow with these people. We're gonna let the rest of your team know, but we've booked you a spot here. This is the type of technology that you're going to need. I mean, those are the things that are coming, but I think it's, you know, we want to make AI feel like it's truly part of our work experience and not so hidden or unknown, and remove some of those barriers and talk about AI more thoughtfully. I think that's, you know, kind of the key, is like, AI can be a very scary word. If you read, you know, articles about AI and the things it's doing, and there is, you know, a bad side of AI, I think, and a very concerning side. But as we think about it for productivity, as we think about it as a tool, that's where we're really starting to understand, like, we can make this a little less of a concern and think about that employee experience and that human experience and find those little opportunities to bring it to life in the space.
I love that, and I think you're so on point. Like, I think the digital overwhelm, the tech fatigue is affecting all of us, on top of just like, it feels like there's so many digital notifications and so much information coming at us at all times. Like, if AI can help us sort some of that out, if it can be present in a room when we're with other humans and enhance that human experience, that feels great. Christina, can you talk about any, there's 2 things actually I want to hear what your thoughts are. But one is like best practices, that you see customers doing integration. And then another is, I know Steelcase is doing a lot of partnerships, like some formal, some informal, like through our customers are bringing partners to us that they want to integrate into space. Who and what are some of those partnerships, and then what are some of those best practices that you're seeing customers start to integrate into their?
Yeah, I would say, you know, best practices right now, as people are thinking about how do I make space more productive and more useful, is really thinking about, like, we all know that we're going to have a designer and a facilities person, and 9 times out of 10 you're going to talk to HR because you want to know what HR is driving from a cultural perspective. But bringing that IT influencer into the conversation early. Most of my friends in IT will say, like, we never find out about a new space until late, and the furniture's already there. Yeah. And now I have to tell them that this beautiful space is not going to work because that wall doesn't hold, has no power. This table can't fit here because all of the things. So we hear this all the time. And I think when we first started working with our tech partners in depth, like, tech partners were like, finally, someone from furniture is talking to us. So that little thing that we can do to bring IT in earlier, talk about what their goals are, talk about their investments for the space, significant dollars get spent, as you well know, with the technology. And if we're not addressing the acoustics in the room, if we're not addressing lighting, if we're not thinking about the shape of the table, that technology likely cannot work as well as it should. And so then it's just like two parts of, it's not really working together. We want that to be much more, cohesive, much more thoughtful. We're even thinking about just how to install tech in the space. So we've opened up our tables and we have doors for technology because we think there's a lot that has to go into installing 12 meeting rooms in a space, and you'd like to not be spending it all dragging tech in and out, trying to find the right cable, where does it go? There's a lot of things that we can do to try to help that. So I think that's one of the best practices that we see, and also just testing the pulse of the employees as space gets designed, getting that feedback, understanding what's working, what's not working, bringing the users into the conversation is really, I think, important part of this, because technology can be very intimidating. I'm not a tech person like Zach, but I play one on TV, I guess. But I think if I can talk about this every single day and really understand tech, anyone can. But it's just like asking the questions, being comfortable with it, keeping that sort of in front of people, I think is one of those really great next best practices as well.
I think one of the things we found when we were designing the space that we renovated was we were talking with our interior designer, and we said, we need to know where the furniture is. What are you putting in this room? Why do you need to know that? I'm like, well, it's a table with 4 chairs that sit here. If you have it against that wall, we've got to put a TV there. If you have it here, we're going to have a TV there. Where do you want the power? Where do you want, there is so much that goes into that. Just even the placement of the furniture matters. So, we worked alongside our designers and our facilities people to make sure that we had all those buttoned up. And, I think the installs went really, really well because we knew, we'd already thought through a lot of this stuff. And again, shout out to Jack for helping us with some of that stuff. So.
Yeah, it is that. I'm going to just quick hit this extra point because they've said it in different ways, but I really want to emphasize this because what they're talking about is bring in IT, bring in technology early, and if you want to start making investments now, preparing now, it's something of a no-regret decision. We were talking about this with a client, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, if AI is going to need to hear voices and identify speakers and identify people and go, okay, there's Mike, they're going to want to invest in great audio systems, acoustics, and camera systems. Well, hey, that's great for everybody today, for all the humans in the room, and it will also help enable those future experiences. So bring it in, think through it now, and you'll thank yourself later.
I love what I'm hearing about bringing in the community, and then the cohort of professionals working together to create that great space, because it's not just the designer, it's not just the AV or the IT guy, or the partner or the supplier, whomever. It's everybody that comes together to understand what is that desired experience, how do we create the most useful environment. Chris, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you bring users into your experience, how you create that sense of community, and maybe even how you gather feedback. Because I think continuous iteration is another important part of fostering that evolving community. As your organization changes, your people change, their needs change. How do you continuously get feedback and allow your environment to respond?
So we had bunch of change champions from different departments. And they were the ones that would go in and sort of check the space out. And they got the sneak preview. They got to play with all the tech before everyone else did. They got to sit in the desks and make them go up and down. They were super happy about it all. But they got to see all the new things we were doing. We also did, we have a video editing specialist on staff. And so he ran our own HQ TV that we went through and we talked. I was on it 2 or 3 times, I think, which was great watching yourself on video. So we went through the space and we talked about the meeting rooms, we talked about the tech, we talked about the furniture. You know, there literally was someone that went, yeah, check out this desk. It goes up and down. You know, but we were able to bring people that were working remote into what it was going to look like if they ever did come into the office, or you know, if they were on that, you know, remote point while we were renovating, they could still come back in. You know, what to expect when they came in. But the change champions were the ones that were pushing that change. You know, HR and our team and the facilities department were working together. But we're surveying all the time. You know, there's surveys that people can fill out. They're constantly sending them out. What do you find about the space now? What about now? What about now? We had some problems with some of the floor tiles, and that's been the hot topic. But I was talking with one of my guys and I went, oh, that floor tile's up. And he goes, yeah, we've had 10 people over here looking at it. But it's because somebody put something in a survey saying the floor tiles are raising. So now we're able to respond to that and make sure it's getting sorted. So.
Yeah, and I mean the statistics around employee engagement and satisfaction, when they not even if like their feedback is taken the organization takes action upon their feedback, when they have a outlet for voicing their feedback and their concern, goes up like 33% or something. The stats are quite staggering. So I'm so glad to hear that you guys are putting importance on that. We do just have a few more minutes, and I wanted to wrap up with just maybe a couple final thoughts from everybody. But Christina, again, I want to go back to that question around Steelcase partners. Like, what are you most excited about that's coming? Who are we working with or thinking about, whether it's names or just like concepts of integration into the environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, our tech partner ecosystem is very robust. We work with folks like Microsoft and Zoom and Logitech and Crestron. And, you know, I think some of the most interesting things that are coming out are kind of these AI aggregator tools that are happening, because now they're able to connect, you know, meeting room data, use data with desk booking, with badging when you get to the door, and really starting to provide data and insights that are about the whole entire ecosystem of the space. And I think that's going to be really helpful, because AI will make it much easier. I think back, you know, thinking about sensors and space measurement and space analytics, it was sort of like looking at some bar graphs and going, okay, so Mondays are low and Fridays are. But now with AI integrating into that, it can really start to give you some true data about like use in specific spaces, and you can query things and make it such more impactful. Like if no one is using a space on 3 East, what is going on there? What's the air quality like? Like there's going to be a lot better analytics that come from this, and I think it's going to help customers make such good decisions with their space as they go down the road. And it also allows you to do some testing of space with some data attached to it. So I think that's really great. Testing and piloting things are really important. I think the other things that we are partnering with that I think are really great, we have some great acoustical partners that we're working with to help with audio in the space. These co-pilot and these AI engines are going to need to understand audio really well. And so you can't really have those, you know, so much reverberation happening in the space, and you're going to have to really think about that. So I think that's going to be a really nice addition to our partnership. So we're really thinking, you know, very broadly about like technologies. Yes, we know like it's all about our, you know, the tech in the room, but it's going to make a play with acoustics. It's going to move from meeting rooms to the desktops. We're really thinking about that. How can we integrate tech thoughtfully into lounge and ancillary spaces as well? So we're really pushing ourselves to think about, if you have to have a phone on you all the time and your laptop, and I think one of the top 5 things that employees tell us they need, like the number 4 thing is power. And I just feel like, okay, we can get there. We can like remove that as that number one need. But I think that's really the exciting thing of where things are going.
Awesome, thank you. Chris, you're like one of our favorite customers because you're embracing change, like you're thinking about what's coming next. Is there anything that you can share that you're thinking about or working on in the future or anticipating a little bit, whether it's an integration or a user need perspective?
Yeah. So I think, I talked about the Logitech site cameras earlier. They build a little tile in your Teams meeting from people around the table. So the last 4 people that have spoken, and people drop off after 15 minutes. Absolutely mind-blowingly awesome. If you haven't used it, try it. But I'm excited about that technology developing. So how do we bring people into the room? The front row technology in Microsoft Teams is, again, phenomenal. Having everybody at the bottom, and it looks like they're in a little theater. It gives that personality. You're not locked into a box now. You're sort of present on the screen. You're present in the room. That's the part, and VR meetings. I really want to test that out. I think that'd be cool. And then directional sound. So we've looked into directional sound as well for some of our spaces. We haven't been allowed to buy it yet. I'm still trying, but we want to try and integrate some of those cool technologies into some of our spaces to show off some of that stuff and see what it can do. I think once you roll something out and you just kind of, there's a thing there, go play with it, see what you can make out of it. And I think, we find use cases for things in the most unnatural ways. So just through people using stuff and they go, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? In IT, we like to think of ourselves as the experts, but we're not. The people using the technology really do become those experts, and they find the ways to use it in a unique way. So that's probably, there's cool technology coming out, but I want to see how people utilize it.
Yeah, I love that you're both you're listening to what your users are needing and asking for, and reading in between the lines of what they might be needing that they can't necessarily articulate, right? So I think, again, I think your organization is leaps and bounds in front of a lot of organizations that are being responsive. I think you guys are thinking forward and thinking about what's next and how to continuously create that community, improve that user experience. Zach, I will give you 1 minute to close us out.
Yep.
And I'm going to leave it open because I feel like you're so excited and passionate about this.
I can't help it.
I know, and I love that. So
Yep.
What are some closing comments from you? I know it's hard to stay in your seat.
I know it, but I think I got a good one here. So I think what I'm anticipating our clients bringing to us and what I'm excited about is the challenge. Yeah. There are a lot of our clients who are asking us to say, what do I need to do to make the return to office happen? What do I need to do to bring my office into the future, or be future ready? And this is the sort of thing that I think our team is ready to do, is say, okay, we understand what we need to do. We got a lot of partners, got a lot of players, some who are on the leading edge who are already doing it, but in some ways, I revel at this whole point that the bar's been raised. The home office is pretty darn good. We can admit that. The office needs to do better, but the future's now. AI tools are here. The way that we can create amazing experiences in the workplace with technology is something that is very much within our capability. We can do this. We can clear this bar. It does take work, it does take effort, it takes planning and partnership. You need friends in IT, you need friends in facilities, maybe even HR, right? And it is not free or easy, but the team at NBS is ready to do it. So that's what I'm excited about.
Our closer, ladies and gentlemen.
I couldn't help myself. I told you. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you all for sharing your insights, your experiences. I think, again, as Zach said, the future is here, the future is now. There's so much that is coming together. There's so much opportunity around responding to the changes of today and creating great workplace communities. Before we wrap up, I think we have a few minutes for Q&A. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists?
This guy was ready. I wonder what he's got for us.
So Jim Becker with CBRE. I've got a lot of clients that do a lot of, obviously, decision making around what do I do with my space, all that stuff. And in general, there's a tech premium that puts all this really cool stuff into place. But I've not seen anything that says, here's the ROI if I do that. And back in my days at JLL, way back when, we did an index around sustainability and what the sustainability ROI was. And I'm wondering if anybody's doing that on the tech side or on the environment side to say, my people are going to be here 5 days a week, you're going to be more efficient, I'm going to lose less people, it's going to cost me less in HR, it's going to cost me less because I'm not hiring 5 people because the turnover's high. Things like that. Is anybody doing that?
You know, I do believe there are people doing that. I don't want to put anybody on the spot for Steelcase research here. I'm not personally prepared with some numbers, but I do think there's a very believable equation where we talk about enhancing employee productivity, engagement, and well-being. These are bottom line issues that all organizations should care about. Your people and your space are some of the biggest assets you have, and investing in that is worthwhile. So without really calling anybody, I don't know if I have any facts or figures or anybody does, but I would definitely agree that there's a story to be had, or a story to be told about investing in technology.
I bet I can find somebody at CBRE that would joint venture that.
I love that, and I think that's what we should do, because I think what you're touching on is exactly how we have been thinking about the workplace, really post-pandemic, is that tech investment, and how do we start to show that, that engagement, improvement. Actually, Chris had a really great conversation with us earlier this week, and we were talking about the wellness, experience. And he was actually saying that, I don't want to talk for you, but his spaces that he designed were really with wellness in mind and thinking about that employee experience. So making it the best experience they can to get up from the desk and go there and know that there's a consistent tech experience, that it's easy, that it's one touch. No one has to walk into that room and go, who knows how to turn it on? And I thought that was a really good insight.
I think the opportunity around both qualitative and quantitative data, the designer in me says, yes, I want to understand how frequently those spaces are being used and what that ROI is, and how we can maybe reduce real estate and increase effectiveness or productivity within the environment. But I also want to know how it makes people feel. Why do you prefer these spaces? So I think being able to balance both the qualitative and quantitative is a huge opportunity. Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we've got you've got to book a space, you've got to, how are you using that space? We're able to get some of that data in. It didn't quite work when they allocated spaces because they used data and people weren't using the system. But I think we learned a lesson, all of us did, through that, that we have to use the system because that's what's going to get us the space we need. So AppSpace have an awesome tool for reserving. It's all linked into Outlook and does all sorts of cool things. But you can have photos of the space on there. You can have all those things. But that allows you to pull data out. How often a space is getting booked out. You can have it so that people have to check in to a space. You booked it, but did you actually show up? And they're working on some things with docking stations and things like that. You don't actually have to book a space anymore. You go click, and it books a space for you. And you just do it on a 2-hour rolling. And I think once that sort of starts to come out and become more common, we're going to end up with more data to use for some of this stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions?
Cindy Swantek with Softtech, and a question I have is, as we're all coming back to the office, I'm finding the transition from a home office to a work office not accommodating. Mm-hmm. Meaning, how do you offer employees at home maybe something that correlates or pairs well with what's being offered in the office, so that when I come in with my laptop and sit in a hotel cubicle, the seat goes to the height I need it at, ergonomically, I'm all set up to go, and everything I have set up in my home office works in my work office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all those little things that you have said, like that is exactly what, you know, we have to keep striving for. That you have to find those little touches of personalization so it doesn't feel so, you know, just bland. You do want it to feel like home. You do want to have some of those touches, and so we definitely think about that throughout the space design. But I think as we go down the path, there will be more tools like desk booking tools that will be personalized for you. Maybe it has your own little family photo that pops up when you book that desk. It connects you with other meeting rooms that you know that you're going to be booking. So I think there's going to be more of that. And then also, like you said, like the desk needs to actually function how you want. Yeah, ergonomically. Yes, exactly.
That'd be cool if they did it already.
Right.
We're not quite
Yeah.
there, but I think that that is for sure part of that experience.
That goes to community-based design.
Yeah.
It's really, the office is trying, we want to, oh, hi. John Barber, NBS, how you doing? But that goes back to, you know, what we're trying to do is, in today's world, is create an environment like a city. City amenities, right? You come in and it's just not, it's great for technology, but it's also well-being, you know, spots to respite or take a break. Having things there where IT help desks or, you know, places where you can rejuvenate with food and snacks and drink. And really you want to make it to be that, isn't that right? I mean, isn't that?
Absolutely.
And that all helps that person feel like, you know, it's well worth taking a 45-minute drive to come in the office, other than the benefit of working physically with their employees. So
I think you're
That's
right,
just more
like
of a
those
comment.
community spaces, right? Like that opportunity to connect in meaningful ways. That opportunity to collaborate in spaces that are far better than sitting in your home office all by yourself. But to your point, that individual space also needs to be as good as, or if not better, than my home office, right, in order to earn that commute. So it's a very holistic experience that we have to look at today. It's not just about providing that own desk that people want or expect. It's everything that's going to attract people back. It's going to make them want to come. It's going to make it better than that home office environment, too.
Can I ask just one question of Chris?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Heather from NBS, and I'm the fortunate one around here who gets to approve budgets for new AV, and I understand that it's not inexpensive by any means, and it changes frequently. So, curious at MSU FCU, I'm imagining that the executive leadership is technology leaning, because that's driving, you know, a lot of what you all are doing. But if a company doesn't have a technology leaning leadership team or mindset, how can some of our customers here encourage their executive teams to put IT at the table and to think of it like they do their other capital acquisitions and furniture budgets, you know, interior upgrades and so on? Because if you're going to start investing in it, you need to keep investing in it. And I'm not sure all of our customers really understand that.
So I think one of the things that we had a moment, we built a huge building right off MSU's campus. It's a 7-8 story building that they built. And what we challenged Jack and the team at NBS with was, we need a wow factor. We've got a building that is in the heart of East Lansing, where we need to be like, we're here and it's awesome. We ended up putting in a huge video wall, undisclosed amount of money, but that was the wow factor for that. We put huge TVs in those spaces. We had all that AV. You walk in that building and it's sleek with the design, and the AV fits the space. And I think by showing small snippets of that, we were able, when we did HQ2, or HQ1, sorry, it was, okay, go for it. Have that, we want it to be that same thing. How can you make it as cool as you can? Because we want people to come back. We want to have those spaces that are easy to use. You know, we'd done some piloting in our old office, and people love the spaces, but the whole building is dysfunctional. It's different technology in each room. You know, it's going back to what you were saying earlier. Originally, it was all one thing. and it was built for pre-COVID. Then COVID happened, and it was completely useless tech. And they knew we had to do something to bring it up to date. So we were testing things. We were putting in different soundbars. We were putting in different cameras. We were doing, all the things. And then when the decision was made to move from WebEx over to Teams, we had a whole new challenge. Well, how do we integrate this? We've gone all in on WebEx. How do we change it over to Microsoft Teams? But showing the benefit of doing that on the smaller scale almost, to kind of show what are some of the things that you can see. Feel free to schedule a tour of one of our buildings. Because we had Granger out, Granger Waste Management out recently, and they just wanted to see, okay, you tell us that this stuff tracks you around the room, prove it. And we did. We walked the front of a community space that we have. We have a lot of community spaces that the community can come and book out for big meetings. The state of Michigan uses them a lot, different groups around Lansing. So we just walked them through, and we were like, hey, we'll kick a meeting off and watch this camera track you as you walk across the front of the room. So.
Clearly need more customers like Chris, obviously.
Well, I want to agree with you, and that we should have more organizations who are aligned at a leadership level to enhance the employee experience. It's almost something that you didn't quite hit because it's baked into the way the team is structured. Digital employee experience, already you're talking ROI and value proposition here. The employee experience matters. And I think when we're talking about the way that they've built spaces, I think it's worth mentioning that it's like the people over at MSU FCU were very keen on not value engineering away the experience. Because these things that he's talking about, whether it's cameras, tracking, and audio systems and acoustics here, they all add up to a great experience where people can have conversations with their teammates, see people and be heard, and these things were embedded in the way the organization approached the workplace. And that's why they're able to, yes, spend, and I of course love a great video wall, but I spend a lot of my time in frontline support, helping end users in meeting rooms. And there would always be this point where gosh, why is this so hard? And the whole point of it was, there's a little bit of being penny wise and pound foolish. Hey, sure, we can take away this and that, and it'll still work, of course, right? Or people just figure this out, and it's like, actually, you probably shouldn't do that. It is worthwhile to invest in the employee experience, and this is what they're getting right.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we see a lot with clients is testing of spaces and proving out that tech investment is worthwhile. And so we oftentimes say hey, start with some small huddle rooms. Those are the hardest working rooms on the floor plate right now because it's 3 to 4 people. They've got 2 or 3 people joining remotely, and those are what the high velocity rooms are. Test a couple, see how it works. I would say also one of the things that Steelcase is really trying to do is making sure as tech changes fairly rapidly that the furniture does not have to change. So we're trying to ensure that we have some longevity and some tech agnostic solutions. So it's not if you change from WebEx to Teams, right. We're thinking about that already. If you change your camera solution because so-and-so comes out with the next best camera, we've already thought that through. So we're trying very hard to make that whole budget process a lot more thoughtful along the way. But I would say a great place to start is test it, understand the uses, understand how often those spaces get used, because you will start to realize that investment can go a long, long way.
And you bring up a great point, designing them to be technology agnostic. We've done that with our building. We can rip out Teams and put in WebEx, we can put in Zoom, we can do, all the technology works with everything. So if your system changes, we just put the new system in. There's no real big lift there. So designing not for what you need today, but what you might need in the future.
Down the road,
sure.
yes.
I guess.
Yeah.
Things change. Like COVID happened, Zoom was the big thing.
Yep.
How many of you actually use Zoom in your office space? You might use it in personal life. I don't know. We have both at work. Some people prefer Zoom. We're predominantly Microsoft Teams, but all the technology works with everything. So.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to our panelists, Zach, Christina, and Chris. Thanks for sharing your expertise, your experience, your brilliance with all of us. They will be around if you guys want to have any more conversations or ask any questions.